Okay, everybody, brace yourself. Today, we are talking about the J word. What's the J word?
Jelly beans.
It's jelly beans. And
The jelly beans that taste like jealousy.
the jelly beans of jealousy. So, it's a really common question that I get. I don't know about you, but people ask a lot about that. Like, as soon as they find out, it's usually one of the first questions. It's like, how do you deal with jealousy? Do you get jealous? And so I think what we could start with is a little bit of myth busting. So people who practice ethical non-monogamy or polyamory, we're not these like magically immune creatures that never feel jealousy. We can start with that, busting that myth.
Mm-hmm.
What other myths are there around jealousy, particularly in poly relationships? That people don't feel it. Well, I kind of already said
that it doesn't exist. I think that seems to be the biggest one.
Yeah, and so the it's not that it doesn't exist. It's that we look at it and frame it and deal with it differently than you might in a monogamous relationship. So I felt jealous before in our relationship.
I think I did in the beginning. It's got it. You know, people talk about getting used to muscles that you haven't used before. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of these emotions that you don't let yourself explore or lean into because they're bad. And again, we never really want to feel pain or discomfort. That's our human nature. But I feel like the longer we've been doing this, the less jealousy there is. And that also has to do with like picking, I think, the right partners, because I genuinely want to like Chelsey's partners, and I pick people because I want her to like them too.
Yeah,
which
it's really important for us.
Eliminates a lot of that.
Yeah.
But that jealousy muscle has definitely gotten stronger. When I say stronger, I don't feel it.
You mean the anti-jealousy?
The anti-jealousy
or
muscle.
the jealousy like movement muscle, like you take it and you manipulate it and you play with it in ways that people don't always realize is possible, and it is possible. I think that we can take from yoga practice, from spiritual practice here, and practice mindfulness, owning our own stuff, being aware of what's ours, being aware of how external factors like what our partner and their partners are doing together affects us, and what is that speaking to inside of us. So I actually read in a book called Anatomy of the Spirit just last night, by Caroline Miss, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly. She speaks about jealousy as being a heart chakra issue, and I'm just saying her words. This is not necessarily what I think, but she says it's a heart chakra issue, and that it has to do with, what does she say about it? I should grab the book. Got the book. Caroline Miss talks about our wounded child. And so she says, the wounded child within each of us contains the damaged or stunted emotional patterns of our youth. Patterns of painful memories, of negative attitudes, and of dysfunctional self-images. Then she goes on to say that fear of abandonment, for example, becomes jealousy. I found that really interesting. That's something I kind of want to chew on a little bit more, but I'll put it out there as kind of a seed that you can see what sprouts from that suggestion. So yeah, it's to go back to what I was saying, the energy of mindfulness, of being willing to look at something and take a step back from it and start to ask questions about what that is, where that's coming from, what that's dictating in your life, and then starting to make choices around how you might like to transform that. So you were saying that you don't really experience jealousy anymore, and how do you feel that you've come to that place?
Well, one of the skills that, and again, there's so many books, and having had conversations with friends that are in the community, having support systems, these are all things that you learn along the way. Again, so it's not like a knowing things. There were steps to this process, but one thing that we do is if either one of us are going out on a date, asking the other person for what we need. Mm-hmm. That might simply be saying everything is going to be okay, or I love you, or I need a cuddle for 30 seconds before you go, or just asking for what we need for reassurance. That way there is no need to chase fantasy in your own minds of, whoever this other person is. What's also really helped with jealousy is actually meeting the person. A human being that has flaws and a sound and a height and a weight has been huge in dismantling, this archetype that you might think that they are.
Mm-hmm.
And then also the thing that's helped me is I want Chelsey to have things that I can't necessarily give her. If that's going out for salsa lessons or tango, I don't know where you went dancing with. What's his name? I don't even remember his name at this point. But that's that's something I really enjoy. So I'm actually glad that someone else can provide that, and is not something that's on me for me to do. So I see it as an addition that way. So yeah, I think it's actually been meeting people has dismantled a lot of stuff, seeing it as not an alleviation might be the wrong word, because that I feel like that connotates that there's like a pain or discomfort happening, but it
does alleviate. That's a really well-known thing, and in the different books that there are to read, which at some point I'd like to put together like a PDF of the books that have been most helpful for us. It's a really well-known thing in the poly community and in this literature that like the image that you create of your partner's partner, which is called metamor, FYI, the image that you create of your metamor is always more threatening than the real person. Always. So at some point, if someone starts to become a regular partner, it just sort of organically comes up that it's like, it's time to meet them. And that always feels so much better. Like recently had a partner sleepover that I had met. We had never had a sleepover, neither of us, with any other partner. And because I had met her, I felt fine with it. If I hadn't met her, I'd be like, who's this stranger gonna sleep in our bed? That just would not have worked for me. So that comes from mindfulness. That comes from knowing what you need, asking for it, within reason, obviously. And then something else that I love that you spoke to is that you want me to be able to do the things I enjoy that you don't want to do with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel the same way. So yeah, it was fun to be able to go out for
happy
that
wife, happy life.
Yeah, but this is a very yogic concept, and we call it compersion in the poly community. Compersion is when you derive happiness and pleasure from someone else's happiness and pleasure. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all beings be happy and free. It's a very yogic practice to cultivate or want to cultivate that for your partner.
And I will say too, jealousy stems from fear of the unknown. So you have to really figure out what you're afraid of. And that I think will help answer a lot of questions. Yeah. Because that was really the biggest thing in the beginning, which caused jealousy but the jealousy that I had was fear-based, not knowing what it was going to be like when she came home, and what the actual fear of meeting the person, and that then within 30 seconds to a minute is dissipated because we're laughing about the same thing or have similar interests. She tends to pick a lot of Ryans too.
Oh yeah, at one point I went out on a date with 3 different Ryans, like in the span of a month while I was living in Colorado. Like I must have subconsciously just been magnetizing him toward me, this guy here. Mm-hmm. And so it was like, I'm going on a date with, what's his name? Ryan. It was like, really? You
start realizing you have a type.
Yeah. So, and I also feel it's really important to share that this is not, you don't like reach a place and then stop evolving or changing there. Like relationships are dynamic being between 2 dynamic and ever-changing beings. So there are times, like even just recently, I realized that I needed to propose a new relationship agreement because I would have discomfort when he would go out and be out really late. Like I couldn't sleep, and then when he would get home, I would be mad at him because I couldn't sleep, and it would just like sour my whole view of his nice time that he had out, even if I had felt fine about it up until then. So an agreement we reached recently was that, you know, like he gives me a window of when he'll be home, and then sticks to that window.
Sticking to it, following through.
Yeah, so if he's like, I'm going to be home by between 11 and 1, that he actually is home between 11 and 1. And keep me updated when he's coming home, because then my nervous system can relax. So it's important to just know that whatever agreements you make, they can change as you do and as you get more information and more experience.
One last thing I will say. It's also a driving factor. A quick for example would be, if she's dating someone that has a good body, that's motivation for me to work on my abs. So
you can see he's the funny one.
I use it in that way too. Like, well, I want bigger biceps.
Good, I'm gonna go date someone with abs.
Yeah. So that's again my own.
Good. It's like positive jealousy.
That's my own process with that. I can't make myself taller. I can't make myself more well endowed.
That's okay.
But there are other things that I can work on that I have influence over. So I use it that way. It's good motivation.
Yeah. Well, thanks for tuning in, and happy